Einar Tangen, a China analyst. Einar, welcome to the program. All of these military exercises, some of them have been said to actually have simulated a potential Chinese invasion of Taiwan. Do you think the exercises have actually pushed a potential invasion date forward?
No, I mean, what's pushing it forward is these two narratives. One on behalf of China, where they believe the three communiques were extremely clear. If you read the plain letter of those, you'll see that all relations with Taiwan were to be informal, and that the issue of Taiwan's and China's reunification would be an internal matter. Remember, it was the United States that kicked Taiwan eventually out of the UN. It was not China. It was by vote. The assembly voted overwhelmingly to do so. And then you have the US narrative, which is they have done nothing wrong. It's very normal to sail warships up and down the Taiwan Straits, to have two, not one, but two military groups, AUKUS and the Quad, lying against China. It's not very transparently. And they're saying, well, no, it's China who's being the aggressor. Each side sees the other as the aggressor. I do think that if you look at the documents and the actions, you would probably see that China is on the defensive and the US is the more aggressive party.
However incensed the leadership in Beijing may be, do you think that there's some members of the Chinese Communist Party who are actually quite pleased with what this American delegation is doing, and the US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi having visited? After she visited, one member, a hardliner, I suppose you could describe them, is reported to have said, "Thank you, Comrade Nancy."
Well, yes, look, I mean, there's 90 million people within the Communist Party of China. There's 1.4 billion people total. If you say they should all have one opinion, you're wrong. They won't. There's a whole rainbow of different ideas out there. Obviously, there are China hawks who would be very interested in pushing forward an armed takeover of Taiwan, but that is not in mainland's best interest. Taiwan isn't going anywhere. Over 42% of its GDP is directly related to the mainland. You take that with China and Hong Kong. So, you know, it's a situation where China needs to show restraint, but also send a very clear message to Washington that it needs to stop trying to encircle it and cause trouble, and whether it's Xinjiang or Hong Kong or Tibet or Taiwan, that this is not the way to contain China. The best way to deal with China is probably to work with it, have a straightforward dialogue about what your concerns are. You might be surprised.
I know you'll have been asked this before, but only because Vladimir Putin has just made a few statements about what's happening with these American visits to Taiwan. The Russian president saying that Pelosi's visit was a thoroughly planned provocation. He said that Western countries are seeking to extend a NATO-like system into the Asia-Pacific region. We know about Joe Biden's pivot towards Asia. And the question you have been asked before is, with what's happening in Ukraine and the American position on Taiwan, do you see a further coming together of Beijing and Moscow?
Well, I mean, China was not happy about Ukraine. I mean, it was a vital part of its Belt and Road Initiative. It was the #1 trade partner for Ukraine. Wheat stability in that region is very important. It's less important to the U.S. The U.S. has, in essence, gotten what it wants. It's galvanized the Europeans. They now believe that they're, in a visceral fight for their homeland, and they're pouring money into defense. That's what the U.S. wanted. They also wanted to encourage a stronger NATO that was willing to take on the policeman of the world role. To the extent that NATO is used to further actions against China, yes, Russia and China will come together, as will Iran and other countries. But as part of the global South, Turkey should be looking around at its neighbors. You'll notice that there's a very, very lukewarm response, if not hostile, to the U.S. provocations. People understand that the U.S. does not want to fight directly anymore. It wasn't good at it in Iraq or North Africa or the Middle East. So at this juncture, they want to use proxy states. So that's to the Chinese narrative. That's what they did. They knew that going into Ukraine would provoke Russia, just as the U.S. knows going into Taiwan will provoke China. So at this juncture, if they continue this, yes, you're going to see a much harder line between these two countries. And also, they will be looking for allies as the U.S. is building up its coalition against them.
That's Einar Tangen speaking to us from Beijing. Thanks very much indeed, Einar.